and welcome once again to Society Girl Saves the World. Today's film that we are discussing is a film called Jungle Queen. It stars Saima in a double role and was produced in the year 2000. The jungle film isn't really that common in Pakistan. There's just been a handful over all these years, and it isn't a genre film that has normally been that commercially successful, so it's worth thinking why this film came about in the first place. The film also stars Moammar Rana and Shafqat Cheema and Khushboo in one of her early roles. It's shot entirely in Sri Lanka, written by Noor and directed by her husband Syed Noor. A question that comes to mind straight away is why even make a jungle movie in the year 2000, as generally this type of movie hasn't been very relevant since the 60s or so. So why make the extra effort and bother with a film involving a jungle queen as the main character? One perfectly viable reason is because it gives your leading lady the excuse to go around wearing next to nothing for almost the entire duration of the film. And therefore all the men are going to be queuing up to watch this movie, spending good money to watch the show of flesh. The other element is, of course, that Syed Noor by the year 2000 was planning to leave his wife who wrote this movie, and Saima, the star of the movie, was very much the apple of his eye, and by now has replaced Noor as BV number 1 in real life. Saima now being Saima Noor. So there's a bunch of reasons why this movie would have been produced. So it could be a combination of any one of these reasons. In actuality, the most likely explanation is that it was a joint feature between the governments of Pakistan and Sri Lanka, which facilitated the making of a movie while enjoying a little bit of a holiday break in Sri Lanka as well. The film features Saima in a double role. Saima, of course, being the number 1 for the last God knows how many years in Pakistan. Here she plays the Jungle Queen, and it is the Jungle Queen's mother actually who's brought out to the jungle. She's heavily pregnant at the time, and her husband is a nasty piece of work and decides to murder her and chucks her into the river, where she is devoured partially by some really nasty looking crocodiles with cardboard teeth, and they do a nasty job on her, but she survives and she's able to bring up her little child in the middle of the jungle with the help of a tribe. I don't know whether you call it a tribe, but a bunch of elephants which seem to be the family of the girl who now grows up to become the second incarnation of Saima, this time as the Jungle Queen. Jungle Queen. Jungle Queen. So basically she romps around the forest without many clothes on with her bunch of friends who happen to be elephants mostly. They show other footage of animals from here and there, and some that obviously don't belong to Sri Lanka at all, and it's really done with very little imagination, and the animal and jungle footage is really very dull indeed. Saima has the unenviable task of playing the jungle woman, which means she basically has to mumble gibberish for most of the movie and appear like a childlike fool. She does this with a wide-eyed expression to the best part of her ability, and I suppose is as good as she was asked to deliver, so you can't really fault her for that particular performance, which is not particularly memorable. Moammar Rana plays a pilot who falls in love with the Sri Lankan jungle and then subsequently with the Jungle Queen. And the plan is to live happily ever after, but she has to find out who her dastardly father was, who killed her mother and left her here in the jungle, that being the main crux of the film story. Meanwhile, there's a group of very evil poachers shipping animals all over the world, making huge amounts of money illegally, and they have planned to abduct one of Saima's favorite family members by the name of Sabu the elephant, and that becomes the second most important part of the movie.
What's the problem?
पहले जंगल के हाथी बेवकूफ होते थे। चंद सालों से एक लड़की ने उन्हें होशियार, चालाक और अक्लमंद बना दिया है। अब वो हमारे जाल में आसानी से नहीं फंसते।
कौन है वो लड़की? पहले तो उसके बारे में नहीं सुना। तुमने देखा है उसे?
कोई नहीं जानता वो कहां से आई है, कैसे आई है। बाद शिकारियों ने उसे जंगल क्वीन का नाम दिया है।
जंगल क्वीन? Jungle Queen.
Will they be able to stop Sabu from being shipped abroad to some evil westerner, or will Sabu and Saima be reunited and prevail? The film is really okay, but that is the problem. It's just okay. There's nothing extraordinary about it. There's nothing memorable about it. There's nothing that is insanely ridiculous other than the wonderful crocodiles. And there's nothing that stands out. There's nothing that's obscene about it. There's nothing that is controversial about it. There's nothing that is a standout which would make you remember this movie in a positive or negative light. Therefore, it is basically a little bit middle of the road and a little bit boring. The music and the songs, they really aren't up to much and don't help the movie along. And the action scenes are not dramatic, and frankly, they're rather dreary. From the acting point of view, Shafqat Cheema is always good in most of his movies, and here he is the same. Saima is okay in her double role. Moammar Rana has a bit of zip and enthusiasm, and while the evil poachers are two muscle men and Khushboo, who looks pretty svelte back in 2000. There's two ways to really look at this movie. Either it should have been really, really bad, so bad that it could have been fun, like some of the movies they have made in the past. Mera Naam Jungli comes to mind. There have been actually other jungle movies in Pakistan that were pretty enjoyable. Love in Jungle from the early 70s was okay, but the best of the lot, I think, is a film from back in the day called Dara, which features cannibalism and a giant monster, and is much better than any of the other jungle movies that I have seen from Lollywood. But a female version of Tarzan is an unusual thing, and I don't think I recall many of the type. There has been another film called Shikari Hasina, but that I think was made even after this one. So, Jungle Queen. It's a perfectly inoffensive movie, but the offensiveness is that it is as inoffensive as it is. It really is too safe and boring and dull to actually excite in any particular way. There's nothing memorable about this film that you're going to take away from it. There is one particularly memorable scene in the film, perhaps the only one, where there is a large python who is grappling with both Moammar Rana and Saima, and in this grappling they somehow get tangled very closely together, and it almost simulates the sexual act as much as you can get in a Pakistani film with its heavy censorship laws. The scene is intended to inject a little sexual energy into proceedings, and it's almost on the verge of being laughable. Perhaps ultimately the most interesting thing is to wonder about why they made the movie in the first place. It didn't do very well at the box office, was forgotten pretty soon, and I don't think it has a big fan following either. Maybe one day Saima will look back and tell her children that she played Tarzan in a movie when she was much younger, or something like that, but to us it wasn't particularly interesting. All in all, Jungle Queen, a little bit of a forgettable experience, which brings us to the end of another round of Society Girl Saves the World, and I hope that you will be able to join us again next time around, and until then, please stay safe. Bye bye.